Welcome to session 2 of Alpha Training. I'm Ben, this is Jason, and we're the hosts of Alpha's film series. This session is all about how to lead a great small group.
Small groups are the heart of Alpha. Some of the funniest moments and the most meaningful moments of your Alpha experience will happen in small groups.
In the last training session, we talked about the core values of Alpha, teaching the truth, friendship, and honest conversation. We want to teach the truth in the context of friendship and conversation. Every guest on Alpha is invited to be a part of a small group and should feel welcomed and accepted. And that's what small groups make possible.
In many small groups, the goal is that the small group leader would teach the group. On Alpha, small groups are unique. It's about facilitating a conversation rather than teaching something. The teaching on Alpha happens during the talk. The small group is a space for guests to explore the Christian faith at their own pace, to give people a chance to ask questions and to share their thoughts and opinions and their ideas.
And it's not just a moment, it's a journey. Alpha is 12 sessions long for a reason. Some may feel that it's too long, but we have one main reason for the length. It takes time to develop good relationships. The goal isn't just information transfer, it's friendship and conversation.
People will discover Jesus through the friends they make on Alpha. People will see how we act and treat others, and our hope is that they get a sense of God's love for them. For some, this might be a glimpse at a type of friendship and community they have never seen before.
Everyone who attends Alpha is a part of a small group. You might assign people to specific groups, or you might find that it happens naturally as people find seats. Try to create an environment that helps people stay in the same group from week to week. The ideal size for a group is between 6 and 12 people. Whether you have 6 or 600 people, try to break the groups down to smaller than a dozen.
Each small group should have at least one host and one helper. The host is the leader of the group. They keep the conversation alive. The helper is there to back up and support the host and encourage the group. The helper does a lot of praying and not a lot of talking. We recommend that the helper doesn't do much talking for a few reasons. We want guests to have more time to talk and share their thoughts rather than us doing most of the talking. And we also want the guests who feel nervous about talking to feel like it's okay, because they aren't the only ones not saying much.
I've often left after the first week of leading a small group thinking, this is horrible, no one wants to talk. But by the end of the 12 sessions, I'm always amazed at how close everyone is and how natural the conversation flows. We've built the Alpha film series in a way to help get the conversation going from day one. Each episode has 3 spots in it for discussion. We'll ask a question, show people on the street answering the question to spark ideas for the conversation, and then you can press pause and take some time to answer the questions for yourselves.
The first question we ask is always an icebreaker. Something that's fun to answer, like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Bones laced with adamantium.
Mine would be teleportation, and besides, having bones laced with adamantium isn't a superpower. It's just like a surgical procedure. It's probably going to be accessible in the next decade or two. So
yeah, but you wouldn't be able to undergo the procedure unless you had regenerative abilities.
So the superpower you'd want is regenerative abilities.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyways, or another question, like if you could have $1 million and you had to give it away, what would you do with it?
Yeah, I know. I would do. I would.
We got no time, man.
I'd give it away.
The first question may not have much to do with the topic of the episode, but it's a fun way to get our mouths moving and the conversation happening. It sets the stage for the more meaningful conversation that follows.
Question 2 and 3 in the episode are directly connected to the session topic and will help guests engage in and think about the content. Plan for about 5 to 10 minutes for each question. You may want a little more time or a little less. We've included more questions for after the episode is done. You could plan to have another 10 to 20 minutes of discussion, as there might be some things that came up earlier that the group wanted more time to talk about.
So what makes a great host and helper?
Great hosts and helpers are 100% committed. Guests can come and go freely. It's okay if a guest misses a session or two, but hosts and helpers need to be there every time.
Great hosts and helpers remember the names of the guests. It's such a great feeling when someone remembers our name. On the first night, have everyone introduce themselves to the group. It's not a bad idea to have everyone wear name tags for the first few weeks too.
Great hosts and helpers pray for the people in their group. This will also help you remember names. Start praying for your group every day.
Great hosts and helpers are excited to be there.
And great hosts and helpers show up early and leave late. Be there to help welcome guests and don't take off early. As people are saying goodbye and standing around, there can sometimes be great conversations.
Great hosts and helpers make sure things end on time. People need to trust that Alpha will end when we say it will end.
And great hosts and helpers keep the conversation alive. And this is what we're going to talk about next.
The goal of small groups on Alpha is to facilitate great conversation. So how do we do that? As hosts, ask questions that engage the group and can lead to more conversation. Questions that end with a simple yes or no don't usually make for good discussion. For example, Ben, did you like the talk?
No.
Ben, do you think Jesus is God?
Yeah.
That's bad discussion. Better questions use words like, what does anyone think? Or what does anyone feel? Instead, you could have asked, how do you feel about today's episode? Or what do you think about the idea of Jesus being God?
In the talk, we ask specific questions, but you'll likely have to rephrase them or ask follow-up questions to keep the conversation going. Here's an example. In episode 2, the third question asks, what parts of the life of Jesus stand out to you? If that question doesn't lead to ongoing conversation, you could ask questions like, what, if anything, is unique about Jesus? Or before tonight, had you ever heard any stories about Jesus? What did you hear? Or what do you think about his claim to be God?
In episode 6, the second question asks, do you think the Bible has a purpose in the world today? What might it be? Easy follow-up questions to that would be, if not, why? Or, is the Bible different than any other books? The good news about all of this is your goal is to keep the conversation going, not to answer every question. Some people feel like they can't be small group leaders on Alpha because they don't know enough theology or Bible facts. But you don't have to. You just need to be honest and authentic. Remember, our goal isn't to teach. It's not information transfer. It's friendship and conversation.
The discussion will be best if you're able to keep it on topic. But make sure you don't kill the conversation in an effort to keep it to the theme. If the group is having a discussion, but it's not directly about the week's topic, you as the host can make a decision to keep it going.
Keep the conversation balanced. Watch for people who want to dominate and engage those who seem disengaged. But don't force people to talk if they don't want to. It's a bit of a dance to make all this happen. What we have here is a typical small group on Alpha. Let me introduce you to the guys. Over here, we've got Swamp Viper, then Storm Shadow, Copperhead, Mr. Potato Head, who is the small group host, Channing Tatum, aka Duke, Legolas, also known as Orlando Bloom, who's coming in to help as the helper on this small group, Snake Eyes, and Alley Viper. We'll use these action figures and this ball to show you what a good conversation and good discussion looks like. This is the goal. It's fluid, it's balanced, everyone gets a chance to talk, it's going back and forth. The host is doing a good job of engaging people, and people are feeling free to share their ideas and have a healthy discussion. Now we want to show you a few examples of what we don't want. This is what we don't want, the host doing all the talking. Mr. Potato Head kind of has a big head, he's a bit prideful, he thinks that everyone should just listen to what he says. That is not a good discussion group. This is no good either. This is Swamp Viper. He's got stories to share, all he cares about is his voice being heard. That's not the goal. Swamp Viper and Shadowstorm are getting really into a deep conversation. Even worse, Copperhead and Snake Eyes are getting into a debate. Copperhead says, listen, Snake Eyes, I think your idea is stupid. And then Snake Eyes says, Copperhead, I think you're stupid, and spikes the ball at him. And the whole discussion's ruined. This is the ultimate goal. Balanced discussion. People feel safe to share their ideas. People feel safe to be quiet. No one's getting shut down. People are sharing different ideas. Hosts and helpers are helping make things happen. This is the goal. This is great discussion. And great small groups end on time, because people have rides coming. Let's go, Channing Tatum. Later, Orlando. I hope you like the demonstration with the G.I. Joes. You might want to actually show this to all the guests on Alpha to demonstrate what good conversation's like. In small groups, show that you're listening and really listen. Actively listen along the way, but don't be cheesy. Just really listen and let your group know that you hear what they're saying. And you can do this without necessarily agreeing. You can respond in lots of ways. Interesting, thanks, or simple nod can show that they've been heard. Try to hear what people are saying. This will help you shape more questions to ask the group. As people share new ideas, invite the group to jump in by asking, what do the rest of you think about what Joe is saying?
Encourage different points of view. The goal is not agreement. Don't feel like everyone needs to agree with you or even with one another. The goal is honest conversation where people feel listened to and safe to ask and answer questions. I had a friend tell me that he didn't want to come to Alpha because he knew that he would disagree with what was being said in the videos, and he didn't want to offend anyone. I told him that we wanted different points of view in the discussion. I told him that he wouldn't offend anyone and that he wouldn't be the only one with a different perspective. Some people will test the waters on this. They might say something extreme to try to get a response out of the leaders, and other people will watch to see how you respond before they feel safe themselves to be honest.
I remember my friend Carly told me in one of the first weeks that she didn't believe in God because that was dumb. And that's when I told her that she was dumb. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. I was really glad that she was sharing, and we kept the conversation going. A few weeks later, she shared that she didn't believe in God because she tried praying when she was young, when there was a really bad thing happening with her and her parents, and God didn't answer her prayers. This was so different than her first answer. We were able to learn about her life and tell her that we're so sad to hear about that, and let her know that we didn't know why God didn't answer her prayers. Others in the group shared similar experiences, and it was a breakthrough for our time together. When people feel listened to and respected, they'll be able to share more honestly.
Don't argue or debate with people. No one comes to Jesus because of losing an argument.
Yeah, and don't criticize other denominations. It's just not helpful.
Some people are nervous to come on Alpha at all. They think they'll be brainwashed or tricked. But when we welcome honest conversation, we disarm that perspective and make people comfortable to be themselves.
I remember one of the first times I heard any Alpha training, and the person said, "Don't answer questions." And I was really confused. So I come again, "Don't answer questions?" I thought the job of the small group leader was to help people find truth. But what I've discovered is that as soon as the small group leader becomes the master of truth, answers every question, and corrects everyone who says something they don't agree with, the conversation shuts down. And then it's just another set of teaching. We need to let the talk do the teaching and the small group be the place for people to discuss. So now I'm sitting here doing the training, and I want to tell you guys, don't answer every question. If someone questions the legitimacy of Scripture or asks how God could let bad things happen, don't answer. Ask the group. Of course, you can participate in the conversation with a short thought, but you're best to help pull responses from the group.
Some people need time to process information, and often by doing it out loud. Part of their learning is talking about it and hearing their own ideas. When you allow others to answer, you invite people into that learning. This really does require a certain level of trust. We need to trust that the message that was shared in the talk will take root in their heart, that the Holy Spirit will work over the 12 sessions through the talks and the discussion.
Now, to be clear, please answer direct questions. If somebody asks, "Where's the bathroom?" don't say, "That's a really good question. What does the rest of the group think?" No, of course, you'd answer it. And if somebody asks you about something personal about you, if the conversation's balanced, it's great to answer. But it's also okay to say, "I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to share. So let's move along, and maybe we'll come back to it later."
I know all of this can feel counterintuitive, but it helps to remember the values. We want to teach the truth in the context of friendship and conversation. And this is encouraging for us. We don't have to be masters of theology, and it's okay not to know everything. We get to be ourselves, be transparent with our own questions and even our own doubts. Small groups not only facilitate discussion, but they're the primary place for prayer on Alpha.
The first time that the guests will encounter prayer is at the end of episodes 2, 3, and 4. Ben and I end these sessions by inviting people to respond in prayer and begin a relationship with Jesus. As hosts and helpers, feel free to chat with your group about it if you think they'd be comfortable. You can ask them, "What'd you guys think about the prayer at the end?" And this is a good way to begin a follow-up conversation.
From episodes 5 to 12, we don't actually pray on screen anymore. Episode 5 answers the questions, why and how should we pray? We end that episode with an invitation for you to try praying as a group. Hosts will lead their small groups in a short time of prayer. This will be the first time that some of the guests have ever prayed out loud. Now there's a few ways you can lead this time. I think the simplest way is to explain to the group that we're going to go around the circle and take turns praying short, simple prayers. Let everyone know that no one has to pray and they can simply say, "Pass," and don't push it on anyone. If you're the group helper, say "pass," so that if a guest doesn't want to pray, they won't feel singled out or awkward.
On Alpha, it's important that group hosts and helpers keep their prayers simple, sincere, and short. We want guests to feel like they could pray too. If we only make fancy, long, eloquent prayers, guests will likely feel intimidated and not try at all.
And sometimes we have a tendency to pray in a different voice and with different words than we would normally talk. Like, "Dearest sovereign Lord, enthroned above the storms in thine heavens, I thank thee for the gift of grand fellowship you have bestowed upon us. May you giveth traveling mercies to our dearest, dear Sandra as she embarks on a journey to Cleveland."
Talk to God like you would someone in the room. God, thanks for these great friends and the discussion we're having. I pray for Sandra that she'd have a safe trip to Cleveland.
In every session following, end your small group with a time of prayer. Feel free to structure the time of prayer in a variety of ways, as long as people don't feel pressured and put on the spot. I'm so amazed how the prayer times mature and grow from week to week. We'll look at how prayer ministry looks on the Alpha Weekend in the next session.
Alpha's run in a lot of contexts, and one of the most exciting places it's being run is in prisons around the world. On one Alpha session, one of the inmates shared this: "This is the first time that anyone ever asked me what I thought." This was life-changing for this man. It was so valuable for him. He felt loved by the host because he cared enough to ask what he thought. This is such a good reminder for us. This might be one of the few places where people feel like their opinion counts and matters. I've heard it said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think there's some truth in that. As hosts and helpers, we get to show people how much we care.